Greetings people, welcome to another Fwoosh video review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the new Hasbro Transformers Generations Combiner Wars Ultra Magnus Leader Class figure. This is one that I simply could not wait to get out of the package. So here he is, already freed from his cardboard and plastic coffin and out in the world. Oh god, and this is one of my most anticipated figures of the whole year, and first impressions right off the bat, I am not disappointed in this figure. But before we get into the details of what this guy is all about and what he has to offer, let's take a look at just the packaging for a second. So again, he's already outside the box, and tucked in there you can see there's that little collector card thing that they all come with these days. But I'm not really going to worry about that because I just frankly don't really care about that sort of thing. I love on the side of the box here, we've got Ultra Magnus and Minimus Ambus. They went through the trouble of illustrating both aspects of this character. So I guess based on whichever continuity you subscribe to, if it's G1, then it's just Ultra Magnus and this is what he looks like. But in the current IDW comics, we've learned that Ultra Magnus is just a title. He's actually a suit of armor, and Minimus Ambus happens to be the character who is currently occupying the Ultra Magnus armor and assuming the Ultra Magnus title. I think that's so cool. But on the back here, it reads, "The legend of Ultra Magnus is exceeded only by the legend of Optimus Prime. When Ultra Magnus was lost, the forces of justice could not let a warrior of his caliber fall. Minimus Ambus, using the power of his rare load-bearer spark, enables Ultra Magnus to fight on." So let's take a close look at what both of these figures have to offer here and how they integrate together, because it is really cool. I mean, I guess this is a Combiner Wars series, and they do kind of combine together in a kind of cool, creative way. So let's take a look at what he has to offer here, and stick around, we'll be back in just a second. Here's Ultra Magnus out of the box and free, and he is one good looking figure. I'm in love with the IDW comics. It is long since surpassed G1 or Beast Wars or any of them as my preferred Transformers continuity and representation of the Transformers universe. And this is the Ultra Magnus I've always wanted, I swear to God. I'm so happy to have this. I've had the G1 and the City Commander and even the Transformers Prime. I skipped the Masterpiece for whatever reason. I think it was because, if memory serves, this guy was announced. Then I figured I just don't need another G1 Ultra Magnus and I want the IDW. So I went straight for this guy, and I am not disappointed at all. This guy is just handsome. Let's get a look at him from all corners. Now, I mean, he's still a modern Hasbro Transformers figure, meaning there are some, there is some chintziness to him. Like the wheels, for example, they're the clip-on variety, and there's no paint there. So and some of the plastic doesn't feel quite as sturdy as it has in the past, but it's still not bad. And for a modern Transformer, I think this is just about as good as it gets. And just the sculpt alone and the colors, I mean, he is just beautiful. I'm really, really pleased with this guy. Let's get a close-up of the Ultra Magnus face. And we can see he's kind of got those kind of like cop-looking, sunglass-looking eyes. They went that far and gave that to him. That's kind of awesome. The head sculpt is just awesome. As with most Transformers figures, he has a fairly neutral expression on his face, but that is okay. And I love the little Autobot sigil just hanging out right there on his blue breastplate. Now on the G1 figure, this blue area was some kind of like rocket sled or something it looked like, but here it's integrated right in with his torso and it's just a part of him, and it looks really cool. And this is really cool too. This is the way Minimus Ambus kind of sits in him. His head can be popped up, and already we can see little Minimus Ambus's face poking out right there. He kind of wears the Ultra Magnus head as a mask, much like the G1 figure did. And then so this just pops down, and then Ambus is kind of like sitting in almost like a control module here, like kind of like a cockpit. And from there, that's where he controls the Ultra Magnus body. Now, even though that was never a part of the G1 continuity, meaning an inner robot, in the G1 cartoon, Magnus this was Ultra Magnus, period. But the original toy, of course, there was the white Optimus Prime that was kind of wearing the Ultra Magnus armor. And between that and how he's depicted in the current comic books, I need an Ultra Magnus that has an inner robot. Like, it's such an important aspect to me. Like, that has to be there. So I'm super stoked that this comes with a Minimus Ambus that can actually sit inside the armor, sit inside the body. That was one of the things that turned me off to the Masterpiece figure, that they kind of eschewed that. And that bummed me out, and that was enough for me to kind of cancel the order in favor of this guy. And I'm really glad I did, because I'm really pleased with this figure. So let's take a look at what he has to offer in terms of articulation. And he is a well-articulated figure. Let's see. His arms, we've got a full range of motion here. And he's got single-jointed elbows, and the arms can move out from his body a little bit. They get hindered by the rocket launchers. And his hands have kind of a clasping feature. They don't rotate or anything. You can't really move his hands at all, but he does have those kind of fingers. There's no waist swivel that I can discern, but his legs have a pretty good range of motion. He can get a full 90 degrees, and his knees also get a good 90-degree bend there. And his hips can move out from his body. So he is fairly posable. His ankles don't have any side-to-side motion, just forward and backward. So that's kind of a bummer, and that limits him a little bit. Oh, and there is a thigh swivel too. I should mention that. There is a thigh swivel. I'm sure you could tell based on those little divots. But his articulation is not bad for such a complicated and sophisticated transformer. In terms of accessories, he comes with the two kind of fake rocket launchers, meaning the red things don't actually remove. They're not real missiles. It's just all one solid sculpt. And the guns can fit in his hands. They don't peg in well, and I sometimes have a hard time getting him to hold them. Like, that's what's happening right here. Yeah, he doesn't want to hold them. Well, there, he's barely got a grip. And he can do that with both hands. I'm not going to go through the trouble with both. But what's cool about the guns is that you can take them, you can peg them together, like so, and then you take the missile launchers off his shoulders, and they peg in just like this. And then you've got the hammer that Ultra Magnus is often depicted with. And he can hold this fairly well. There's a slot right there. He just has to get a grip on it. And then, yeah. There he is holding the hammer, looking all stately and imposing, just like the character is. I mean, it's kind of neat. I think that's how he's going to be handling his guns, just because he can't really hold them very well otherwise. Although I do miss the rocket launchers when they aren't in his shoulders. So there is that. Okay. So what we're going to do next, actually, let's get some comparisons here. So here he is. There's Ultra Magnus, and then here he is with the Voyager class Springer, his fellow Wreckers teammate, and Transformers the movie 1986 co-star. So Magnus is a pretty good size. I mean, he's a good deal larger than a Voyager. I mean, he's still small for what we're used to seeing in a leader class, but it's not terrible. He's not puny or anything. And he's got some decent heft to him, and he looks pretty good with other Autobots that would normally surround him. Now, all we really need, so we've got a good IDW Springer, we've got a good IDW Magnus, we really need a good IDW Rodimus. So come on, Hasbro, please make it so sooner rather than later. And then Chrome Dome and Rewind while you're at it too. But these guys are looking pretty cool all together. And while we're at it, I've got a rather dusty old G1 Ultra Magnus that we can put together just for kicks, and they're about the same size almost. I mean, the G1, just the brick-like nature of it makes him look a little bit more substantial in terms of stature, but these guys are just about the same size, and that's pretty darn cool. I really like that. The white thighs here, of course the G1 has red thighs. The white thighs are more of an IDW thing. I think the Takara figure comes with red thighs, if I'm remembering correctly, but I could be 100% wrong about that, and I could be totally imagining that. I don't know. But I do know that this Ultra Magnus is just the version I've been wanting for so long. Okay. So let's get the hammer out of his hand. And let's get Minimus Ambus out of there, and we'll take a look at him really quick. He's really small, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on him. And I love the way he sits in there. He sits in there so snugly. It really is like a cockpit. There's even like little pegs that his hands can hold on to, so it looks like he's controlling two joysticks. And he should pop out of there fairly easily, yeah. And again, Minimus Ambus is really, really tiny. Get him in focus, yeah. I like the coloring. They've got the white and the different shades of green down. He's got the red eyes. I mean, he's a really small figure. He's about the same size as those little pack-in figures that came with the Legends class figures last year. So here he is with Reflector, and he's just a little bit larger than Reflector, but still really small. Still really, really, really tiny. And his transformation is pretty simple. It's kind of like the back flips up, the legs flip around, and then the arms peg in, and there he is. And he's got the Autobot sigil there. He is considered an Autobot. He looks like some kind of a car, but there's no wheels of any sort. And underneath it's like, there he is, hello, hi, I just kicked my legs up, that's all I did. So he's just kind of some zippy little racer, but I'm really, really just so happy to have Minimus Ambus. The Takara figure, the Takara Ultra Magnus, comes with a little tiny Alpha Trion for some reason, and I don't really get that. I don't get why it's Alpha Trion. Alpha Trion was never tiny, and he never sat in Ultra Magnus, but I don't know. But Minimus Ambus here is a must, absolute must for me, so I'm super stoked to have him. Okay, so next we're going to check out the full transformation for this guy, so just sit tight. Okay, so the transformation is a little bit involved. So where we left off here, we just took Minimus Ambus out of kind of the Ultra Magnus cockpit, and what we can do first is just flip Magnus's head down inside there, and that's where it's going to tuck away during the transformation. And then there's this panel that just flips down. We can close up the cab. There we go. Now we can see he's already starting to look like a truck because there's the truck cab. That just flips up. And then this whole contraption back here pulls out and slides up. And then we can flip around the cab. And then there's a couple tabs for that front part to fit into. And already there is the truck cab. The original Ultra Magnus, the cab was a totally separate piece, just like Optimus Prime. I mean, it was a white Optimus Prime. Here, it cannot be removed. It is a permanent piece of the entire figure. So the next thing I like to do is flip this down, and then the arms can be pushed out like this, both sides. And then the blue part that's kind of shelling his hands, it can be flipped out to shell even further, make his hands totally disappear. That's how that works. And then much like the G1 figure, this just flips up, and that locks into place, and those lock into place. So already he's starting to resemble the car carrier. So now all we've got to do is manage the feet down here. And this is where it gets a little tricky and complicated. These red panels flip out, just like that. And this thing flips around now too, because it's kind of loose. Then his feet come back and flip to be tucked inside there like so. Okay. Now this is where it kind of gets to be a pain in the butt for me. This panel has to flip around. So it does that. Oh my god. And then there's a tab for it to tab into. While it does that, I can't tell. Nope, it's not totally in there yet. Okay. That looks like it's done. And this one also flips up and around and tabs in. And they kind of lock together. So it's kind of looking like a mess right now. Then what we can do is just flip his thighs up. Like so. Gotta get his arms out of the way. Maybe you can see what I'm doing here. There's just so much going on. And then all that just kind of snaps together. So this is actually going fairly smoothly. I'm kind of impressed here. Okay, now these red panels flip out, flip down, and they go over here and they lock into place. There's a tab where they tab into. Do the same thing over here, get them to tab in. Huh, boy. Now all we gotta do is, let's see, flip his arms down. Now, these things don't tab together very well, these two parts of his arms, but there are tabs. Like there's a tab here, and there's a slot on the inner panel here. Okay. I believe that's it. Okay. That is it. Ugh, what a process. And then the missiles can be attached to the sides, like so. Like so. But that is the Ultra Magnus car carrier mode. Now, it's kind of an awkward sized alt mode. I mean, it looks like it's in scale with Minimus Ambus. If we just look at the cab and the size of the windows in the cab and then Ambus's kind of windows, it's like the pilots would fit in either one of them. Which means he's a weird scale in this mode. Like any Autobot cars that are going to fit in his car carrier here are going to seriously dwarf the cab. So it's kind of strange. And then, of course, the white bits here do fold down to give anyone who needs access to it access. So they can just go, and they're in. So, I mean, it's a good alt mode for an Ultra Magnus figure. It's not the most elegant looking thing. You can tell, like, the floor in the car carrier is kind of, well, it's kind of iffy. And same with the upper panel here. It's a little bit iffy, too. But for the most part, I mean, for a retail level IDW Ultra Magnus figure, that is pretty darn awesome, I think. All the way around. It just looks really cool. And again, super stoked to have Minimus Ambus. So, that is Ultra Magnus from the Combiner Wars series. And man, for me, Hasbro knocked this guy out of the park. Yeah, I was never the hugest fan of Magnus's car carrier alt mode. I always thought it was a little weird looking. That's true for any version of this figure, the G1 right on up. So I'm never going to be in love with Ultra Magnus's alt mode, and that's the case here. It's just strange for me, but that's not a criticism of the particular figure. It's just the design of the character. I think for a IDW Ultra Magnus rendition in plastic, I don't think we could do better than this guy. I think he is just awesome. For me, this is figure of the year material for me. I'm just in love with it. So, my recommendation is buy on site when you find him. Just grab him, pay for him, and don't even look back. I happened to get mine from Amazon when they had him in stock for a few minutes a couple weeks ago, so I feel pretty good about that. I'm happy to have him. So you can keep checking Amazon. I think Big Bad Toy Store has him in stock too. But whatever you have to do to get this guy, if you're a fan of Ultra Magnus or the IDW comics or Transformers in general, this guy's a must-have. Must-have. I mean, waste no time. Stop watching me. Go get him, is what I'm saying. I haven't been this enthusiastic about a figure in a long time. And since Ultra Magnus is a very much loved character for me, I'm super stoked to have this. So, again, that is Combiner Wars Ultra Magnus. Thank you for watching us here once again, and check us out on our message boards and on Twitter and on Facebook and all that good stuff. And we will definitely see you soon. Thanks for watching.